The morning sun cast long shadows through the stained glass windows of Westminster Abbey. Catherine, Princess of Wales, stood perfectly still in her deep emerald gown, the weight of the ceremonial robes pressing down on her shoulders. The golden embroidery caught the light as she breathed slowly, trying to steady herself. She had been standing for nearly 2 hours already, and the ceremony was far from over. William noticed the slight tremor in her hands first. He stood 3 feet away, as protocol demanded during state ceremonies, but his eyes never left his wife. 20 years of marriage had taught him to read the smallest signs, the way she shifted her weight almost imperceptibly from one foot to the other, the careful, measured breaths that were just a little too deliberate. The abbey was packed with dignitaries from around the world. The air was thick with incense and the weight of tradition. This was the most important state ceremony in a decade, marking the anniversary of the Commonwealth's founding. Every movement was choreographed, every word scripted. Kate's role was crucial. She was to present the ceremonial sword to the visiting heads of state, a tradition dating back centuries. She had been unwell for days, though she'd hidden it well. The children had brought home a virus from school, and while they'd recovered quickly, Kate had pushed through, attending engagement after engagement. William had urged her to rest, but she'd insisted she was fine. The Princess of Wales didn't cancel appearances for a simple cold. The Archbishop's voice echoed through the vast space, reading ancient words in Latin. Kate's vision blurred slightly. She blinked hard, forcing herself to focus on the golden cross ahead. Her lady-in-waiting, Sarah, stood nearby but couldn't approach during the ceremony. The rules were absolute. William saw Kate's shoulders tense. Her breathing had changed again, becoming shallow. He knew that look. She was fighting to maintain composure. The temperature in the abbey was stifling, the combined heat of hundreds of bodies and countless candles creating an oppressive atmosphere. The heavy robes didn't help. The moment came for Kate to step forward. She moved with practiced grace, each step measured and elegant. The ceremonial sword waited on its velvet cushion. As she reached for it, her hand trembled. Just slightly. But William saw it. The sword was heavier than it looked, solid gold and precious stones making it a considerable weight for someone already struggling. She lifted it, turning to face the assembled guests. The Commonwealth representatives stood in a perfect line, waiting to receive the symbolic gesture. Kate took a step forward, then another. The world seemed to tilt slightly. She paused, trying to regain her equilibrium without anyone noticing. But William noticed. He had already started moving, breaking protocol with subtle steps that brought him closer. His mother would have been appalled at the breach of ceremony. But she wasn't here anymore. He was, and his wife needed him. Kate's knees buckled without warning. The sword slipped from her grasp, clattering on the ancient stone floor with a sound that echoed like thunder. She swayed, her eyes rolling back, the emerald gown pooling around her as she began to fall. William moved faster than anyone had ever seen him move in public. Protocol, ceremony, tradition, none of it mattered. He caught her before she hit the ground, his arms wrapping around her, pulling her against him. Her head lolled against his shoulder, unconscious. The abbey erupted in gasps and whispers. Cameras flashed despite the prohibition. Security moved forward, unsure whether to intervene. The Archbishop stood frozen. The ancient ceremony interrupted for the first time in its 1,000-year history. "Kate," William whispered urgently, his hand cupping her face. "Kate, love, wake up." Her skin was pale, too pale, with a sheen of perspiration despite the morning chill. He could feel her rapid, shallow breathing against his chest. The ceremonial robes made it difficult to hold her properly, but he adjusted, cradling her more securely. "Your Royal Highness," the Lord Chamberlain approached, his voice low and urgent. "We should move Her Royal Highness to the vestry." The ceremony. William's head snapped up, his eyes blazing with a fury rarely seen in public. "The ceremony can wait," he said, his voice carrying the authority of a future king. "Get me a doctor, now." The crowd parted as medical staff rushed forward. William refused to let go. Even as they tried to examine her, he shifted to allow them access but kept her in his arms, her head still resting against his shoulder. "She's been ill," he told the doctor quietly. She wouldn't rest, stubborn as always. His voice cracked slightly on the last words. Kate's eyelids fluttered. A soft moan escaped her lips. William's hand tightened on her shoulder. That's it, love. Come back to me. Her eyes opened slowly, confused and unfocused. She tried to sit up, suddenly aware of where she was, of the hundreds of eyes upon them. The ceremony, she whispered. I have to. No, William said firmly. You don't have to do anything except rest. But the Commonwealth representatives, the tradition, can go to hell, William said, loud enough for those nearby to hear. Another breach of protocol. He didn't care. The doctor was taking her pulse, checking her pupils. We need to get Her Royal Highness somewhere she can lie down properly. The vestry has a couch. I'm not letting go, William stated simply. It wasn't a question or a request. It was a fact. With surprising strength, he stood, lifting Kate in his arms. Her protests were weak, easily ignored. The crowd parted again as he carried her down the aisle, her emerald gown trailing behind them like a river of green silk. The cameras captured every moment, though many photographers lowered their equipment out of respect. This was not the poised, controlled royal couple the world was used to seeing. This was raw, real, and deeply human. In the vestry, William gently laid Kate on the ancient couch, but he didn't release her hand. He knelt beside her, pushing damp strands of hair from her forehead. The doctor worked around him, taking vitals, asking quiet questions. I'm fine, Kate insisted weakly. Just dizzy. The heat. You fainted, Kate. Completely unconscious. William's voice was gentle but firm. This isn't fine. The private secretary hovered nearby, phone in hand. Your Royal Highness, the ceremony. Should we postpone? The representatives are waiting. William didn't even look at him. Handle it, he said simply. Whatever needs to be done. We're not moving until she's well. Kate tried again to sit up. William, you can't just cancel a state ceremony. Think of the diplomatic implications. He pressed her gently but firmly back down. Watch me, he said. I've spent my entire life putting duty first. Today, you come first. The doctor finished his examination. Exhaustion and dehydration, primarily. Her Royal Highness needs rest, fluids, and probably a proper meal. Has she eaten today? William looked at Kate, who avoided his gaze. Kate? There wasn't time, she admitted quietly. The children needed help getting ready for school. Then the briefing ran long, and you put everyone else first, as always, William finished. His tone was loving but exasperated. The Lord Chamberlain appeared in the doorway. Your Royal Highness, the Archbishop is willing to pause the ceremony for 30 minutes. Perhaps if Her Royal Highness could just make a brief appearance. No, William and Kate said simultaneously. They looked at each other, and despite everything, Kate smiled weakly. You've corrupted me, she whispered. The perfect princess would never refuse duty. The perfect princess needs to learn she's human, William replied, squeezing her hand. The next hour passed in a blur of medical checks, hurried consultations, and diplomatic scrambling. William never moved from Kate's side. He held her hand through the IV insertion, helped her sip water, and firmly refused every suggestion that he return to the ceremony. They're saying you carried me out, Kate said eventually, her voice stronger. In front of everyone. I did, William confirmed. Quite dramatically, I'm told. The papers will have a field day. Your grandmother would have been mortified. My grandmother would have understood, William said quietly. She knew what it was like to balance duty and family. She made her choice. I'm making mine. Kate's eyes filled with tears. The sword. Did I drop the ceremonial sword? Spectacularly, William confirmed with a slight smile. It made quite a clatter. Oh God. Kate covered her face with her free hand. Centuries of tradition. Ruined. Improved, William corrected. We're showing them we're human. That even princesses need someone to catch them when they fall. The private secretary returned, looking harried. The ceremony has been completed without your presence. The Archbishop adapted admirably. The representatives were most understanding, especially after we explained Her Royal Highness was unwell. Good, William said simply. Now, about our schedule for the rest of the week. William, no, Kate protested. Cancel it, he continued, ignoring her. All of it. The Princess of Wales will be taking a week to recover. A week. Kate struggled to sit up again. William, be reasonable. I have the literacy campaign launch, the veterans' dinner, the children's hospital. We'll all survive without you for 1 week, William finished. Kate, you collapsed, in Westminster Abbey, during a state ceremony. If that's not a sign you need rest, I don't know what is. She looked at him for a long moment, seeing the fear he'd been hiding behind the firm decisions and protective anger. His hand was still shaking slightly where it held hers. You were scared, she said softly. Terrified, he admitted. When you went down, Kate, I thought. He stopped, unable to finish. She pulled him closer, until his forehead rested against hers. I'm sorry, she whispered. I should have listened. I should have rested. Yes, you should have, he agreed. But you didn't. Because you never do. Because you always think everyone else is more important than you are. Pot, meet kettle, she said with a weak smile. Which is why we're both taking a week off, William declared. Someone needs to make sure you actually rest, and apparently I'm the only one you can't argue into submission. The doctor returned with discharge instructions and medications. As he explained the importance of rest and proper nutrition, William took mental notes. Kate watched him with soft eyes, seeing him switch into caretaker mode. The journey back to Kensington Palace was quiet. William had overruled all protests and insisted on the car with the privacy screens. Kate lay with her head on his shoulder, the heavy ceremonial robes replaced with a simple cashmere wrap someone had thoughtfully provided. The IV had been removed, but she still looked pale against the dark leather seats. The children, Kate murmured suddenly. They'll hear about this at school. Someone will tell them, Mummy fainted, already handled, William assured her. The school has been notified. We'll pick them up early and explain everything ourselves. What will we tell them? The truth. That Mummy worked too hard and got too tired. And now she needs to rest. They'll understand. They're smart kids. Kate was quiet for a moment. Charlotte will want to play nurse. She'll make me stay in bed and bring me her toy thermometer every hour. Good, William said. Maybe you'll actually listen to her. As the palace gates came into view, Kate tensed. Even from here, they could see the crowd of photographers gathered outside. News traveled fast, and the image of William carrying his unconscious wife from Westminster Abbey was probably already on every news website in the world. Ignore them, William said, feeling her tension. We're going straight to our apartment. No statements, no photos, nothing. But as they pulled through the gates, Kate saw something that made her breath catch. Mixed among the photographers were ordinary people, holding flowers and signs. Get well soon, Princess Kate, one read. We love you, said another. William, look, she whispered. He glanced out the window and his expression softened. They care about you, Kate, not the Princess of Wales. You. Inside the palace, their staff was waiting. Everyone had the same look of barely concealed concern. Kate's private secretary, Amanda, stepped forward immediately. Your Royal Highness, I've cleared your schedule as instructed. The organizations have all been notified and send their best wishes for your recovery. Thank you, Amanda, Kate said, then paused. Were they very disappointed? Amanda's expression gentled. They were concerned, ma'am. Nothing more. The Children's Hospital actually sent a card already. The young patients made it when they heard you were unwell. William felt Kate lean more heavily against him. He knew that would affect her more than anything else. Bed, he said firmly. Now. Their apartment was a haven of calm after the chaos of the morning. William helped Kate to their bedroom, ignoring her protests that she could walk perfectly well on her own. He knew better. He could feel the slight tremor in her muscles, the way she gripped his arm just a little too tightly. Bath or bed? He asked, once they reached their room. Bath, she said immediately, then hesitated. But I should probably check my emails first, make sure nothing urgent. Bath, William repeated, as if she hadn't spoken. He was already moving toward the bathroom, turning on the taps. Emails can wait. She followed him, watching as he added her favorite lavender bath salts. Such a simple, domestic gesture from the future King of England. The press would have a field day if they could see him now, kneeling beside their bathtub, testing the water temperature like any ordinary husband. I can manage, she said softly. I know you can, he replied, standing and turning to face her. But you don't have to. Not today. Not with me. Her eyes filled with tears again. Exhaustion always made her emotional, and William's protective care was overwhelming after the stress of the morning. I hate being weak, she admitted. You're not weak, William said firmly, pulling her into a gentle embrace. You're human. There's a difference. He helped her out of the simple dress she'd changed into, pretending not to notice how her hands shook slightly with the buttons. The bath was perfect, not too hot, scented with lavender and something else. Chamomile, maybe. Kate sank into it with a sigh that came from her soul. William sat on the edge of the tub, sleeves rolled up, one hand trailing in the water. Better? Much, she admitted, though I still can't believe I fainted. In Westminster Abbey. During the Commonwealth ceremony. It'll go down in history, William agreed. Right up there with royal protocol disasters. It's not funny, Kate said, but her lips twitched. It's a little funny, William insisted. Especially the part where Lord Pemberton nearly fainted himself when I told him the ceremony could wait. You really said, "To hell with tradition," among other things. I think I may have created a diplomatic incident. Kate laughed, then immediately looked guilty. We'll have to do something to make up for it. Maybe host a reception. Kate, William's voice held a warning. What did we just discuss about rest? After I recover, she amended quickly. Completely recover. That's better. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, William occasionally adding more hot water to keep the bath warm. Kate felt the tension slowly leaving her muscles, the headache that had been building for days finally starting to ease. I've been thinking, William said eventually, about the schedule. Not just this week, but in general. Kate looked at him warily. William, hear me out, he continued. We take on too much. Both of us, but especially you. You say yes to everything, every charity that asks, every cause that needs support, and they're all worthy. I know that, but you're spreading yourself too thin. People depend on us, Kate said quietly. On me. When I became part of this family, I accepted that responsibility. Being responsible doesn't mean working yourself into collapse, William countered. Mum tried to do everything too. Be everywhere, help everyone. And, he stopped. But Kate knew what he was thinking. Diana had burned bright and burned out. Her life a constant whirlwind of obligations and appearances until the very end. We're not our parents, Kate said softly, reaching for his hand. We have each other. Exactly, William agreed, squeezing her fingers. Which is why I'm not going to stand by and watch you run yourself into the ground. We're going to make changes. What kind of changes? Fewer solo engagements, more time between foreign tours, actual weekends off. He paused. And maybe it's time to delegate more. We have a whole team who could take on some of the smaller events. Kate was quiet, considering. Part of her rebelled at the idea of doing less. She'd worked so hard to prove herself worthy of her position, to show that she could handle the pressure of royal life. But another part, the exhausted part that had collapsed in front of hundreds of dignitaries, whispered that maybe William was right. The press will say I'm lazy, she said eventually, that I can't handle the pressure. The press will say whatever sells papers, William replied. They'll criticize you for working too much or too little, for being too formal or too casual, for breathing wrong on Tuesdays. We can't live our lives for them. A knock on the bathroom door interrupted them. Your Royal Highnesses. It was their housekeeper, Mrs. Davies. The children are here. Kate started to stand, but William pressed her back down. They can wait 5 more minutes. Mrs. Davies, could you get them a snack? We'll be right out. Of course, sir. When her footsteps had faded, Kate looked at William. They'll be worried. They'll be fine, he assured her. Children are resilient. It's good for them to see that even parents need taking care of sometimes. He helped her out of the bath, wrapping her in the softest towel from the warming rack. Kate wanted to protest that she could dry herself, but the truth was, she was still feeling shaky. The bath had helped, but the exhaustion ran deep. William had already laid out comfortable clothes. Not the designer outfit she'd planned for the afternoon's now canceled engagement, but soft leggings and one of his old RAF sweatshirts. It smelled like him. Like comfort and safety and home. Better? He asked when she was dressed. Much, she admitted. Though I look a fright. You look beautiful, he said simply. You always do. But especially when you're not trying to be perfect. Before she could respond, the bedroom door burst open and Charlotte rushed in, followed more sedately by George and Louis. Mummy, Charlotte exclaimed. Mrs. Patterson said you fainted like a princess in a fairy tale. Did Daddy have to kiss you to wake you up? Something like that, William said, ruffling his daughter's hair. George, older and more aware, hung back slightly. "Are you okay, Mum? Really okay?" Kate held out her arms and he came to her, allowing the embrace he usually considered himself too old for. "I'm fine, darling. Just very tired." "Because you work too much," Louis piped up. "That's what Daddy said in the car. He said you're terrible at resting." "Did he now?" Kate looked at William, who shrugged unrepentantly. "It's true," Charlotte added. "You're always going to meetings and parties and things. Maybe you should stay home more. We could play." "I think that's an excellent idea," William said. "In fact, Mummy's going to be home all week. Doctor's orders." "Really?" All three children perked up at this unexpected news. "Really," Kate confirmed, surprising herself by not feeling guilty about it. "Though I'll probably be quite boring. Lots of resting." "We can rest too," Charlotte declared. "We can watch movies and read stories and have tea parties in bed." "And play video games?" Louis added, hopefully. "We'll see," Kate said, which everyone knew meant probably yes. George, still pressed against her side, looked up at her. "Were you scared when you fainted, Mum?" Kate considered lying, giving him the brave answer a future king's mother should give. But William's words echoed in her mind. They were showing them they were human. "I was," she admitted. "But then Daddy was there. And I wasn't scared anymore." "Dad broke all the rules," George said with something like awe. "It's all over the internet already. He carried you out in front of everyone and told Lord Pemberton to. Well, Thomas's older brother said a word I'm not allowed to repeat. Your father was very heroic," Kate agreed, catching William's eye over George's head. "I wasn't heroic," William protested. "I was terrified. That's what makes it heroic," George said wisely. "Being scared and doing it anyway. That's what you always tell us." The rest of the day passed in a blur of gentle chaos. True to her word, Charlotte appointed herself head nurse, complete with a plastic stethoscope and very serious expression. She took Kate's temperature every 30 minutes with various toy thermometers, declaring each time that the patient needed more rest and possibly a biscuit. Louis contributed by bringing every stuffed animal he owned to keep Kate company in bed, until she could barely move for the mountain of plush toys. George, more practical, set himself up with his homework at the foot of the bed, occasionally reading out interesting facts from his history textbook. William coordinated it all with the efficiency of a military operation, making sure Kate ate regular meals, drank plenty of water, and actually rested between the children's ministrations. He fielded phone calls from concerned family members, dealt with the ongoing diplomatic smoothing over from the morning's events, and somehow managed to help Louis build a blanket fort that encompassed half the bedroom. By evening, Kate was genuinely feeling better. The color had returned to her cheeks, the shakiness had subsided, and the bone-deep exhaustion had eased into simple tiredness. She lay propped against pillows, Charlotte curled against one side, Louis sprawled across her lap, and George reading aloud from Harry Potter. William sat in the armchair beside the bed, ostensibly working on his laptop but really just watching his family. This was what mattered, he thought. Not the ceremonies or the traditions or the perfect appearances. This, Kate laughing at George's dramatic reading voices, Charlotte solemnly checking her mother's pulse with her toy medical kit, Louis fighting sleep, but determined not to miss anything. "Daddy's staring again," Charlotte announced without looking up. "Am not," William protested automatically. "R2, all three children chorused. The week that followed became something of a legend in the Wales household. For the first time in years, both William and Kate were simply present, not as the Prince and Princess of Wales, but as parents, as partners, as people who needed rest and time and space to breathe. The press, predictably, went wild. The photos of William carrying Kate from the Abbey were on every front page, analyzed from every angle. Body language experts weighed in on what it meant. Royal historians compared it to other breaks in protocol. Medical professionals speculated on the cause of Kate's collapse, but inside Kensington Palace, none of that mattered. Kate slept late for the first time in months, waking to find William already up, managing the children's breakfast and school preparations with surprising efficiency. He'd banned her from the kitchen for the week, insisting she stay in bed until at least 9. "This is ridiculous," she protested, on the third morning, appearing in her robe despite his orders. "I'm perfectly capable of making breakfast." "No one said you weren't capable," William replied, flipping pancakes with more confidence than she'd expected. But you're not going to. Sit. Louis. Show Mummy your drawing. Louis proudly displayed a colorful scribble that might have been the Abbey, or possibly a dinosaur. It's you, fainting, he announced cheerfully. And that's Daddy catching you, and that's the sword making a big noise. It's very artistic, Kate said diplomatically, accepting the cup of tea William handed her. Mrs. Henderson called it a defining moment in modern royal history, George added, not looking up from his cereal. She made us write essays about it. Oh God, Kate groaned. What did you write? That my dad's a hero and my mum works too hard, George said simply. I got an A. Charlotte, who had been quietly spreading jam on her toast with surgical precision, looked up. Isabella's mum said you're setting a good example by showing it's okay to not be perfect all the time. She said she's going to start saying no to things too. William caught Kate's eye and smiled. See? You're starting a movement. The Princess Catherine self-care revolution. That's not a thing, Kate protested. It is now, Charlotte declared. We made a chart. She produced a piece of paper covered in stickers and enthusiastic crayon work. See? Every time Mummy rests properly, she gets a star. When she gets 20 stars, we have a party. A quiet party, Kate negotiated. A very small, restful party. Deal, Charlotte beamed. After the children left for school, the palace felt different. Quieter, but not empty. William worked from home, setting up in the study but leaving the door open. Kate could hear him on conference calls, his voice drifting down the hallway. Every hour or so, he'd appear with tea, a snack, or just to check on her. I'm not made of glass, she told him after the fourth such visit. No, he agreed, sitting on the edge of the bed where she was supposedly reading but actually just thinking. But you're not made of steel either. Despite what you try to make everyone believe, she set her book aside. When did you become so wise? When I watched my wife collapse in front of 1,000 people, he said quietly. When I realized I'd been letting you burn yourself out because I was too focused on my own duties to really see what was happening. That's not true, Kate protested. You're always telling me to slow down. Telling isn't the same as making sure it happens, William countered. I saw the signs, Kate. The skipped meals, the late nights preparing for engagements, the way you'd smile through exhaustion. I should have done more than just suggest you rest. Kate reached for his hand. We're both guilty of putting duty first. It's what we were taught. It's what's expected. Maybe it's time to change those expectations, William suggested. For us, and for our children. I don't want George thinking he has to sacrifice his health for the crown. I don't want Charlotte and Louis believing that saying no is a weakness. They were interrupted by a knock at the door. Amanda entered, looking apologetic. I'm sorry to disturb you, ma'am, but there's been a development. Kate immediately tensed. What kind of development? The video of His Royal Highness carrying you from the Abbey has gone viral. Not just news coverage, social media. The hashtag William holds her is trending globally. William groaned. Of course it is. There's more, Amanda continued, looking uncomfortable. The public response has been overwhelming. The palace has received thousands of messages of support. Many people are sharing their own stories of burnout and exhaustion. Several major publications want to do pieces on work-life balance in modern society, using your experience as a starting point. Kate looked at William, then back at Amanda. What's the palace's position? The communications team thinks it could be an opportunity, Amanda said carefully, to show a more human side of the monarchy, to connect with people who are struggling with similar issues. But of course the decision is yours. After Amanda left, Kate and William sat in silence for a moment. You don't have to do anything, William said finally. We can ignore it all until it dies down. Kate was quiet, thinking. Or we could use it, she said slowly. Not immediately, not while I'm still recovering, but eventually, if people are connecting with this, if it's helping them feel less alone in their own struggles. That's very you, William said with a fond smile. Turning a personal crisis into a way to help others. Pot, kettle, Kate reminded him. You're the one who broke centuries of protocol to put family first. That's sending a message too. Over the next few days, the palace released a simple statement thanking everyone for their well wishes and confirming that the Princess of Wales was recovering well. But the real response came from Kate herself, a week later, in the form of a handwritten message posted on their official social media accounts. To everyone who has reached out with kindness and understanding, it read, Thank you. Your stories of struggle and resilience have touched me deeply. We all face moments when the weight of our responsibilities becomes too much. What I've learned this week is that asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Taking time to rest isn't selfish, it's necessary. And having someone who refuses to let go when you fall isn't just love, it's everything. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The message was shared millions of times. Health organizations praised the honesty. Working parents related to the struggle. Even other royals, usually silent on personal matters, expressed support. But the most meaningful responses came from closer to home. Kate's mother arrived with homemade soup and strict instructions to eat every drop. Pippa canceled her own plans to spend afternoons keeping her sister company. Even the queen herself called, not as monarch to subject, but as one woman to another, sharing her own memories of exhaustion and the importance of accepting help. Your father was like William, she told Kate during one visit. Absolutely refused to follow protocol when I had pneumonia, years ago. Caused quite the scandal by canceling a state dinner to stay home with me. I was mortified at the time. But looking back, it meant everything. The children, meanwhile, had fully embraced their roles as Kate's recovery team. Charlotte's medical checks became increasingly elaborate, involving multiple stuffed animals as assistant nurses. Louis created feel-better songs that were enthusiastic if not entirely tuneful. George, more seriously, had taken to researching nutrition and presenting his findings at dinner. Did you know, he announced one evening, that chronic stress can suppress immune function? It's scientifically proven. Is that so? William asked, hiding a smile. It is, George confirmed. So Mummy needs to avoid stress. It's science. Can't argue with science, Kate agreed solemnly. 2 weeks after the collapse, Kate attended her first event, a small reception for one of her key charities. William insisted on accompanying her, and they'd agreed to a shortened appearance. As they prepared to leave the palace, Kate caught sight of herself in the mirror. She looked different. Not ill, but not as polished as usual. She'd chosen a simpler dress, lower heels, minimal jewelry. Her hair was styled but not elaborate. She looked, she realized, like herself. Ready? William asked, appearing behind her. Do I look okay? She asked, smoothing her dress. You look real, he said. Which is perfect. The reception went smoothly. If anyone noticed that the Princess of Wales sat down more often than usual, or that the Prince of Wales kept a protective hand at her back throughout, they were too polite to mention it. What they did mention was how present Kate seemed, how genuinely she listened to their stories, how much more relaxed they both appeared. You seem different, ma'am, one charity volunteer said carefully. In a good way. More. I don't know how to explain it. Human? Kate suggested with a smile. Exactly, the woman beamed. My daughter saw the video, you know, of the prince carrying you. She said it was better than any fairy tale because it was real. She's been telling everyone that even princesses need rest sometimes. That night, as they tucked the children into bed, Charlotte presented Kate with her star chart. 20 stars, Mummy. You did it. You rested properly for a whole 2 weeks. So I did, Kate agreed. What kind of party would you like? Charlotte considered carefully. Movie night, she decided. All of us together, with popcorn and blankets and no phones. That sounds perfect, William said. Later, after the children were asleep and the palace had settled into quiet, Kate and William stood on their private balcony, looking out over London. The city sparkled with lights, alive with millions of people living their own struggles and triumphs. Do you regret it? Kate asked quietly. The scene at the Abbey? William pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. Not for a second, he said firmly. I'd do it again tomorrow, 1,000 times over. The papers are calling it the moment the monarchy became modern, Kate said. Rather dramatic, don't you think? Maybe, William agreed. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe showing that we're human, that we struggle and need each other. That love matters more than protocol. Maybe that's exactly what the monarchy needs to be. Kate turned in his arms, looking up at him. When did you become such a revolutionary? When I realized that losing you would matter more than losing any crown, he said simply. In the weeks and months that followed, changes happened slowly but surely. Schedules were adjusted, duties were redistributed. The palace hired additional staff to help manage the workload. William and Kate began attending more events together, supporting each other in ways that broke traditional protocol, but felt entirely right. The public responded with overwhelming approval. Charitable organizations reported increased awareness about burnout and workplace stress. The hashtag evolved from William holds her to hold each other, becoming a movement about supporting loved ones through difficult times. But for Kate and William, the real victory was smaller and quieter. It was in the mornings when Kate actually ate breakfast instead of rushing out. It was in the evenings when they said no to just one more event and yes to bedtime stories. It was in the way Charlotte now reminded everyone to check if they were tired. The way George spoke openly about stress in his school presentations. The way Louis drew pictures of his family holding hands. 1 year later, at the same Commonwealth ceremony, Kate stood in the same spot where she'd collapsed. She wore emerald again, carried the same ceremonial sword. But this time, William stood beside her, not 3 feet away as protocol demanded, but close enough to touch. When she lifted the sword, his hand briefly touched her back, steady and sure. She completed the ceremony flawlessly. But that wasn't what made the headlines. What people remembered was the moment after, when the ceremony ended and William took her hand, raising it to his lips in a gesture that broke a dozen rules and warmed 1,000,000 hearts. "Still standing," he murmured, "just for her." "Still standing," she agreed. "But thank you for catching me when I wasn't." "Always," he promised. "Always." And in that moment, in front of the world, the future king showed that sometimes the greatest strength isn't in standing alone, but in holding tight to the one you love and never letting go. The throne could wait, tradition could bend, but love, real, protective, unwavering love, that was the true foundation of everything. Kate had collapsed before the throne, but she had risen with something more valuable than perfect poise or unshakable composure. She had risen with the knowledge that she was loved, supported, and never alone, and in a monarchy learning to navigate the modern world. That truth was worth more than all the ceremonies and protocols combined. The story that began with a collapse ended with a stronger foundation, not just for William and Kate, but for their children, their institution, and the countless people who saw in their experience a reflection of their own struggles, and the promise that seeking help was not weakness, but wisdom. In the end, the princess who fell became a symbol of something greater, that even those who seem to have everything still need someone to hold them when they fall. And that true love isn't just about sharing the throne, but about being willing to leave it behind when the person you love needs you more.